The massive alien ships appeared without warning above Earth's blue skies. People across the world stopped what they were doing and stared up at the enormous vessels that blocked out the sun. These weren't the friendly visitors that humanity had hoped for in their dreams of first contact. These were conquerors. The Vorthan Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had crushed 63 different alien species, turning entire civilizations into slave labor for their massive industrial machine. Earth was just another planet to add to their collection, another species to break and bend to their will. Fleet Commander Corval stood 12 feet tall, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lights of his flagship. His forearms moved with mechanical precision as he reviewed Earth's file. Humans were classified as suitable for deep space mining operations. Their adaptability and endurance made them perfect for the asteroid belts, where most species would die within days. Ambassador Minho Kim had been Earth's top diplomat for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. He stepped into the crystal conference chamber aboard the alien flagship, his hands steady despite the fear coursing through his veins. Behind him, translator Jinwoo Park and aide Soman Lee tried to maintain their composure as they faced humanity's first alien contact. The room felt cold and sterile. Strange symbols pulsed along the walls and the air hummed with alien technology. Corval's voice came through the translation device as a series of mechanical clicks and whirs, but the meaning was crystal clear. "Your species will surrender all weapons and technology," Corval announced, his four eyes focusing on the human delegation. 90% of your population will be relocated to mining facilities in the Kepler sector. The remaining 10% will maintain basic agricultural operations under Vorthan supervision. Minho felt his blood run cold. They weren't talking about conquest. They were talking about the complete destruction of human civilization. What about our governments? Our cultures, our families? Corval's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Your governments will be dissolved. Cultural expression interferes with productivity. Family units will be separated based on work assignments. Soman Lee's pen trembled as she took notes. Jinwoo Park swallowed hard before translating Corval's next words. Your species shows promise for hazardous environment work. The asteroid mining operations require workers who can survive in extreme conditions. Humans appear suitable for this purpose. The casual way the alien commander discussed turning humanity into slave labor made Minho's stomach turn. He had dealt with difficult negotiations before, but this wasn't a negotiation. This was a sentencing. How long do we have to consider your terms? Minho asked, knowing that Earth needed time to formulate a response. Corval consulted a device on his wrist. 72 of your hours. This is more generous than we typically allow, but your species is new to galactic politics. We prefer to avoid unnecessary destruction of useful resources. The cold calculation in those words hit harder than any threat. Humanity wasn't seen as a civilization, or even as people. They were just resources to be harvested and allocated where needed. As the human delegation prepared to leave, they overheard Vorthan officers discussing Earth's expected response. The aliens were placing bets on how quickly humanity would surrender. The shortest estimate was 6 hours. The longest was 48 hours. None of them believed Earth would hold out for the full 72 hours. They always break quickly. Once they understand the reality, one officer chittered to another. The Zenthi lasted 36 hours. The Karathi managed 51 hours before begging for mercy. The shuttle ride back to Earth felt like a funeral procession. Minho stared out at the blue marble that had birthed humanity, wondering if this would be one of the last times he would see it free. The alien fleet hung in space like a sword over Earth's throat, waiting to fall. News of the ultimatum spread across the planet within hours. Emergency sessions convened in every capital city. The United Nations building in New York buzzed with frantic activity as world leaders tried to process the impossible situation they faced. In Seoul, President Kyung-han received the full briefing. The choice was simple and terrible: surrender and watch humanity disappear into alien slavery, or fight and watch humanity disappear into extinction. But as reports came in from around the globe, something unexpected began to happen. Instead of panic and despair, A strange calm settled over Earth's population. Messages poured in from every continent, all saying the same thing. Whatever Earth decided, they would stand together. The 72-hour countdown had begun, and humanity was about to surprise the galaxy in ways that no one, not even the humans, themselves could have imagined. The emergency session in Geneva had been going for 18 straight hours. Coffee cups littered the massive conference table as world leaders tried to process what seemed impossible. President Kyung-han looked exhausted, his usually perfect suit wrinkled from the sleepless night. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth, all facing the same terrible reality. Defense Minister Ji-won Choi spread out classified documents that most people in the room had never seen before. Project Makjang has been theoretical. Until now, she said quietly. We developed it during the Cold War as the ultimate deterrent, something so terrible that no one would ever dare use it. Chancellor Tae-hyung, from the European Federation, leaned forward, his glasses reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights. You're talking about planetary suicide. That's not a solution. That's madness. Chief Scientist Hyun Yu had been silent for most of the meeting, but now she spoke up. Her voice was steady, but everyone could hear the weight of what she was about to say. Every nuclear facility on Earth can be synchronized. Every fusion reactor, every antimatter research lab, every experimental energy project. We can turn our entire planet into a weapon. The room fell silent. Outside, they could see the alien ships hanging in Earth's sky like dark storm clouds that never moved. Admiral Seo-hyun Nam pulled up holographic displays showing Earth's nuclear infrastructure. We have over 13,000 nuclear weapons, 650 nuclear power plants, 43 fusion research facilities, and 12 antimatter laboratories that most of you don't even know exist. Prime Minister Won-ho Lee from the Asian Alliance stared at the numbers. You want to detonate all of that at once? Not detonate, Haeun corrected. Focus. Every piece of energy on this planet focused into Earth's core. We can create a controlled gravitational collapse. Turn our entire world into a weapon that will destroy everything within light years. President Kyung-han walked to the window and looked up at the alien fleet. Somewhere up there, Commander Corville was probably having his morning meal, confident that Earth would surrender like every other world before them. How long would it take? 6 hours to reach the point of no return, Haeun replied. After that, nothing can stop it. Not us, not them, not anyone. The Brazilian representative, Minister Dayon Silva, shook her head. We're talking about killing 8 billion people. Our families, our children, everyone we've ever known. The aliens plan to kill us anyway, Admiral Seo-hyun shot back. Just slowly, in their mining operations. At least this way, we choose how our story ends. Communication Director Min-soo Kang had been monitoring global broadcasts throughout the discussion. The people are already choosing, he said, pulling up news feeds from around the world. Look at this. The screen showed something remarkable. In every major city, people were gathering in the streets, not to protest or panic, but to stand together. In Tokyo, millions held hands in silent solidarity. In London, crowds sang hymns that echoed through the ancient city. In New York, Times Square was packed with people who simply wanted to be together for whatever came next. They know what we're discussing? President Kyung-han asked. Min-soo nodded. The alien ultimatum leaked 6 hours ago. Social media is exploding with something I've never seen before. People aren't asking to be saved. They're asking to go down fighting. Messages poured in from around the globe. A farmer in Iowa wrote that he'd rather die free than live as a slave. A teacher in Mumbai said she refused to let her students grow up in chains. A fisherman in Norway declared that some things were worth more than survival. Chancellor Tae-hyung looked at the messages, flooding in from his own constituents. They're all saying the same thing. Fight or die, but don't surrender. The vote was unanimous. Earth would send its response. Communication Director Min-soo Kang opened channels to every frequency the aliens were monitoring. His hands shook slightly as he prepared to broadcast the message that would change everything. To the Vorthan Empire, he began, his voice carrying across the galaxy. "We have considered your terms of surrender. We reject them completely. Withdraw your forces from our solar system immediately, or witness what happens when a species values freedom more than survival." The message continued, broadcast in 17 languages to make sure every human on Earth could understand. "We are not your slaves. We are not your resources. We are humanity, and we choose to stand free or not at all." Up in orbit, Commander Corville received the transmission in his command center. His officers chittered in confusion as the translation program struggled with human concepts they had never encountered before. "They're threatening us?" his second-in-command asked. Corville's 4 eyes studied the display showing Earth below. In all his centuries of conquest, no species had ever responded with threats. They begged, they pleaded, they offered tribute, but they never threatened. "Impossible," he clicked. "They have no weapons that can harm us." But down on Earth, in laboratories and military installations around the world, scientists and engineers were already beginning the most dangerous project in human history. They were turning their entire planet into a weapon that would redefine what it meant to choose death before dishonor. The countdown had begun, and neither species fully understood what humanity was about to unleash. Commander Corville's massive form tensed as he processed humanity's defiant message. His forearm slammed against the command console, sending alien officers scurrying backward. In over 300 years of conquest, no species had ever dared to threaten the Vorthan Empire. The audacity of these primitive humans made his mandibles click with rage. "Commence orbital bombardment," he roared, his voice echoing through the flagship's command center. "Target their major population centers. Show them what happens when inferior species forget their place." The Vorthan fleet opened fire with devastating precision. Plasma beams, each one capable of melting through a mountain, lanced down from orbit like the wrath of angry gods. New York disappeared in a flash of superheated glass. London became a crater of molten stone. Tokyo vanished in seconds, leaving only a smooth depression where millions had lived and worked. But something strange was happening. As the bombardment continued, the humans weren't scattering like every other species had done. They weren't broadcasting surrender messages or begging for mercy. Instead, they seemed to be ignoring the destruction entirely. Sensor Officer Thylek, a veteran of 47 conquests, stared at his displays in growing confusion. His equipment was detecting energy signatures that shouldn't exist on a primitive world. "Commander," he called out, his voice carrying an edge of uncertainty. "I'm reading massive power fluctuations from the planet's surface. They're doing something to their planetary core." Deep beneath the smoking ruins of Seoul, Dr. Haeun Yu sat in a reinforced bunker that had been built to survive nuclear war. Banks of monitors surrounded her, showing energy readings from around the globe. Her hands moved across holographic controls with practiced precision, orchestrating the most dangerous scientific experiment in human history. "Initiation sequence confirmed," she spoke into her headset, her voice reaching command centers on every continent. "All nuclear facilities are synchronized. Beginning cascade in 3, 2, 1. Around the world, something unprecedented began to happen. Every nuclear weapon on Earth fired simultaneously, but not at the alien fleet above. Instead, they fired inward toward the planet's core. 13,000 warheads detonated in perfect synchronization, their combined force directed into Earth's molten heart. At the same moment, every nuclear power plant on the planet overloaded. Fusion reactors that had been humanity's hope for clean energy became part of the greatest act of defiance in galactic history. The experimental antimatter laboratories, projects so secret that most governments didn't know they existed, collapsed, their containment fields on schedule. "Phase 1 complete," Haeun reported, sweat beading on her forehead despite the bunker's cool air. "Earth's mass is beginning to collapse into a weaponized singularity. We have approximately 6 hours before the process becomes irreversible." The effects were immediate. Above ground, the alien bombardment suddenly seemed insignificant compared to what was happening deep within the planet. Earth's magnetic field began to fluctuate wildly. Gravity itself started to behave strangely. pulling objects in directions that defied physics. Commander Corville watched his instrument panels with growing alarm. The gravitational sensors that had functioned perfectly for centuries were now spiking into zones marked in red. Warning klaxons blared throughout the fleet as navigation systems struggled to compensate for the impossible readings coming from Earth. "What are they doing down there?" he demanded, but his officers had no answers. Their databases contained the complete military history of 63 conquered species, but nothing like this had ever been attempted. Lieutenant Vexus, the fleet's youngest officer, pointed at the tactical display with a trembling appendage. "Commander, look at the escort vessels near the planet. They're drifting." Corville's eyes widened as he saw what was happening. 3 of his smaller ships, positioned close to Earth for optimal bombardment angles, were being pulled toward the planet by forces that shouldn't exist. Their engines screamed at maximum power, but they couldn't break free from the expanding gravitational anomaly. "All ships retreat to safe distance," Corville ordered. But even as he spoke, he realized there might not be a safe distance. The humans weren't just threatening to destroy themselves. They were creating something that would consume everything within light years. Dr. Heiyun Yu watched her monitors as Earth's core continued its controlled collapse. The planet's mass was being compressed into an impossibly dense point, creating a gravitational field that would eventually tear apart the fabric of space itself. "Global network, this is command," she broadcast to the surviving human settlements across the galaxy. "Earth is becoming a weapon. The process cannot be stopped. We have chosen our fate." The alien fleet scrambled to retreat, but the damage was already done. Several escort vessels were now trapped in the expanding event horizon, their crews sending desperate final transmissions back to the Vorten homeworld. These messages would carry a terrifying truth across the galaxy. Humanity had just proven that some species were too dangerous to conquer because they would rather become weapons than accept chains. Commander Corville stood at the bridge of his HFY War flagship, watching helplessly as an entire planet transformed itself into a cosmic bomb. In all his centuries of conquest, he had never encountered a species that valued freedom more than survival itself. The unthinkable had happened. Humanity had called the galaxy's bluff. The Vorthon fleet was in chaos. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for centuries now struggled against forces they had never encountered. Warning sirens blared across every vessel as hull plates groaned under impossible gravitational stress. Commander Corville watched in horror as his mighty dreadnought, a ship that had conquered entire solar systems, shuddered like a leaf in a hurricane. "Hull integrity at 60% and falling," reported his chief engineer, panic creeping into his normally steady voice. "The gravitational distortions are tearing us apart from the inside." 3 escort vessels had already been lost, pulled into Earth's expanding gravitational field like insects into a spider's web. Their final transmissions echoed through the fleet's communication systems, carrying the terrified voices of crews who had never known defeat. "This is Captain Xyloth of the destroyer Vexhara," came one desperate message. "We cannot break free. The humans have done something impossible. They have turned their entire world into a weapon that defies all known physics." The emergency broadcasts automatically transmitted back to the Vorten homeworld, carrying with them footage that would shake the foundations of the Empire. For the first time in galactic history, an entire species had chosen to weaponize their own extinction rather than accept conquest. On Luna Base, Intelligence Officer Jinseo Bai worked frantically at his communication array. The moon's surface shook beneath his feet as Earth's gravitational field began affecting even its closest neighbor. Through the observation windows, he could see Earth changing before his eyes. The blue marble that had been humanity's home was now glowing with an eerie light as its matter compressed beyond all natural limits. "This is Luna Base to all human settlements," Jinseo transmitted, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to do. "Earth has chosen its path. We leave you our final gift." His fingers danced across the controls, uploading terabytes of data to communication satellites scattered throughout human space. The technical specifications for Project Makjang, humanity's ultimate act of defiance, began broadcasting to every human colony in the galaxy. "To all free peoples of the galaxy," Jinseo continued, We give you the knowledge to choose your own fate. When they come for you, when they demand your surrender, remember Earth. Remember that some things are worth more than survival. Engineer. Sanjay Kim stood in the observation dome of Mars colony, watching his homeworld die. The red planet's thin atmosphere couldn't hide the terrible beauty of Earth's transformation. The planet's surface was beginning to buckle and fold as its mass collapsed inward, creating patterns of light that no human eyes had ever seen before. They really did it, he whispered to his colleague, Dr. Minjung Park, who stood beside him, with tears streaming down her face. They turned our whole world into a bomb. Around them, the colony's population had gathered to witness humanity's ultimate sacrifice. Children who had been born on Mars pressed their faces against the reinforced glass, trying to understand why the adults were crying. Parents held them close, knowing that they were watching the end of one chapter of human history and the beginning of another. The message from Luna Base reached human settlements scattered across the galaxy like seeds on the cosmic wind. On Kepler 442b, mining foreman Dongyun Ryu received the data packet while deep in the asteroid belt. His weathered hands shook as he downloaded the specifications that would allow his small mining operation to become a weapon capable of destroying star systems. "Boss," called out his assistant, Hyun Woo Nam. "Are we really going to do this if they come for us?" Dongyun looked at the technical readouts, understanding for the first time what Earth had truly accomplished. "If the choice is slavery or this," he said quietly, "then Earth has shown us the way." On Proxima Centauri, Colonial Administrator Yuman Song gathered her staff in the Central Command Center. The data streaming in from Earth painted a picture of sacrifice beyond anything in human history. Her colony of 50,000 souls now held the power to turn their entire world into a cosmic weapon. "We need to vote," she announced to her council. "Not on whether to use this, but on whether to prepare for the choice. Because if the Vorthons come here, we need to be ready to follow Earth's example." Aboard the generation ship New Horizon, military attaché Nayeon Young ran calculations on her personal tablet. The massive vessel, home to 200,000 humans traveling between the stars, could be converted into a weapon that would make Earth's sacrifice look small. Her expertise in military engineering showed her exactly how it could be done. "Commander, Corval's fleet had retreated to the edge of the solar system, but the psychological damage was already spreading like wildfire. Emergency communications from the Vorthon homeworld demanded answers that Corval couldn't provide. How do you explain that a species chose total annihilation over surrender? But the real damage was yet to come. Word of Earth's sacrifice began, reaching the 63 conquered worlds throughout Vorthon space. Species that had accepted slavery for generations suddenly realized there was another choice. They didn't have to live on their knees. The revolution that would topple the Vorthon Empire had begun, and it started with a single, impossible act of defiance from a small blue planet that chose to become a star rather than accept chains. DT. First crack in the Vorthon Empire appeared 6 months after Earth's sacrifice. On Altair Prime, a world that had been enslaved for over 2 centuries, something unprecedented happened. The Zenthi, a species that had been broken so thoroughly that they had forgotten their own names, suddenly remembered what it meant to choose. Elder Kithara, the oldest surviving Zenthi on the planet, stood before the massive industrial complex, where her people had labored for generations. In her withered hands she held a datapad containing humanity's final gift. The technical specifications for Project Makjang glowed on the screen, translated into every known language by human refugees scattered across the galaxy. "My children," she spoke to the thousands of Zenthi workers gathered around her. "The humans have shown us another way. We do not have to live as slaves." Within days, the Zenthi had begun converting their industrial equipment. The same factories that had produced weapons for their Vorthon masters now worked on something far more dangerous. They were turning their world into a weapon that would make the Vorthons think twice about the price of empire. The news spread like wildfire across Vorthon space. 17 conquered worlds threatened to follow Altair Prime's example rather than continue their subjugation. For the first time in galactic history, the threat of death had lost its power over entire civilizations. Military historian Hagen Park worked tirelessly aboard the refugee fleet New Dawn, documenting the collapse of the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Her fingers moved across her keyboard late into the ship's artificial night, recording the events that would reshape the cosmos. Earth died on a Tuesday, she wrote in her journal, but Earth's death became a weapon more powerful than any fleet. The humans didn't just choose to die free. They chose to die in a way that would inspire every slave in the galaxy to demand the same choice. Her research showed the domino effect spreading across dozens of star systems. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were suddenly rediscovering concepts their grandparents had forgotten. Dignity, choice, and the idea that some things were worth more than survival. The reports flooding into Vorthon High Command painted a picture of an empire in free fall. Admiral Nexus, the Empire's top military strategist, stood before the High Council with news that would have been unthinkable just months before. 17 worlds have the capability to implement the human protocol, he reported, his voice hollow with defeat. 43 more are developing the technology. We face a choice we have never confronted before. Withdraw from these worlds or watch them destroy themselves and take our fleets with them. Supreme Chancellor Vorthok, ruler of the Empire for over 6 centuries, stared at the holographic display showing his crumbling domain. Red markers indicated worlds in rebellion. Yellow markers showed worlds developing doomsday capabilities. Green markers, representing loyal worlds, were becoming increasingly rare. How did one primitive species destroy an empire that has lasted 1,000 years? He asked, though he already knew the answer. The humans had proven that the foundation of Vorthon power, the fear of death, was an illusion. There were things that sentient beings valued more than life itself. Commander Corvell, once the pride of the Vorthon fleet, now drifted alone in a small personal craft at the edge of the Sol system. Stripped of rank and exiled in disgrace, he had become a living reminder of the Empire's first great defeat. Through his ship's viewports, he could see the gravitational anomaly that had once been Earth. Space itself had been twisted into impossible shapes where the human homeworld once orbited. The anomaly pulsed with energies that defied physics, creating beautiful and terrifying patterns in the fabric of reality. It was a monument to human defiance that would last until the heat death of the universe. Personal log. Day 218. Corvell spoke to his ship's computer, his voice carrying the weight of a broken warrior. The humans accomplished something we thought impossible. They made their defeat into our defeat. Every day I watch this monument to their choice, and I understand why our empire is crumbling. Deep in the outer rim, beyond the reach of Vorthon sensors, Captain Hyunwoo Lee established humanity's final colony on a rogue planet drifting between the stars. The world had no sun, heated only by its molten core, but it was free. 300,000 human refugees had found their way to this dark haven, carrying with them the memory of Earth's sacrifice. Colony log, New Terra Establishment Day 1. Hyunwoo recorded as he stood in the settlement's first permanent structure. We are no longer the species that kneels. We are no longer the species that begs for mercy. We are the species that taught the galaxy that some things are worth dying for. Around him, children born after Earth's destruction played in corridors lit by artificial suns. They would grow up knowing that their homeworld had chosen to become a weapon rather than accept chains. They would carry that knowledge to the stars, ensuring that no species would ever again face conquest without understanding they had another choice. The Vorthon Empire, faced with an impossible reality, began the greatest retreat in galactic history. Fleet after fleet abandoned conquered worlds, returning to the Empire's core systems as their 1,000-year dominion crumbled. They had learned a truth that would reshape the galaxy. Some species were too dangerous to conquer because they valued freedom more than existence itself. In the end, Earth's sacrifice had accomplished what no army ever could. It had proven that the power of choice could overcome the power of force, and that sometimes the greatest victory came not from winning, but from showing others how to refuse defeat.